This is my most important video to date. I'd be glad for it to be shared and happy to have comments. It may be the last video I'll need for a while. Fed up with a year of misinformation, no information and lack of answers, I've decided to try to unlock the blockage. I should say that I always try to steer clear of party politics, although I sometimes comment on party policies that I feel help or hinder our solar predicament. Ponthir Solar 7 confirms my support for thoughtful solar development by pointing out where TotalEnergies got it wrong, especially when the UK government has just announced an investment to protect nature, and when the French company made £4 billion net profit in the first quarter of 2026. Being in favour of solar power plants generally, I've sent the French company a list of 20 conditions under which I would accept a solar project near me. These are the conditions. Even then, the massive development would still be an experiment. Number 1. For the company to produce plans that wouldn't need government relaxations, and with clarification of the company's role and responsibilities, and whether their panels would be black, like mine. They tell me they don't know, although the bluish polycrystalline panels are inefficient and out of date. A trial of the taller than normal panels in local fields. A trial to measure rainwater runoff from panels into the brook near me and the river. Number 4. A thorough assessment of additional flood risks. 5. A predicted cost of extra flood prevention. 6. Delaying the project to coincide with an expected delay in grid availability. Also, to clarify the electrical and monetary beneficiaries of the development. Number 7. To publish safeguards for the large underground gas main running across the fields, and safeguards for domestic electricity, telecommunications and water supplies. 8. To conduct trials of anticipated heavy traffic on highways, at junctions and in lanes. Number 9. To conduct trials of site construction vehicles. Number 10. To comment on potential damage to roads, bridges, lanes, fields, accesses and hedgerows, with plans for remedial measures. Now, at the halfway mark in my conditions, I feel I must comment on my background. I began campaigning after French testing of a plutonium fission bomb on the Mururoa Atoll in the Pacific. The experiments had serious consequences for islanders, sea life, and even the ground beneath. So in the 1960s, I began to support Greenpeace. Then came the callous French Navy bombing of the Rainbow Warrior, which killed a Greenpeace activist. To assist in their recovery, I arranged their visits to Welsh towns and cities. I remember guiding the Greenpeace bus into the pedestrianised centres of Newport and Cardiff, where people flocked to see the activists in the coach. I continued to be close to Greenpeace, whilst later helping Surfers Against Sewage and other campaigns. In 1984, I embarked on a campaign against hazardous waste processing, with an aim to improve its processes and to reduce sources of chemical waste. It led to the campaign against waste importation that I took to other countries and helped them in their own efforts. I was very successful in the media, locally, nationally and internationally, and this led to a legal action against me and the BBC, when a dozen newspapers and radio and TV companies were sued. I was the only libel victim who survived totally unscathed after 4 years of proceedings. Following the company's capitulation in front of the judge, I stood on the steps of the High Court with my young children and Solicitor Sally Moore to take it all in, and what the result would do to the hazardous waste business and the global waste trade. Then, back home in a wonky car to Denise and to write a book. After having been featured in a couple of books, having been the focus of an academic paper on the geopolitics of waste, fresh from being a TV celebrity and presenting a primetime TV documentary myself. A barrister who worked for the then Prince Charles also worked on my case, and a lord was my benefactor. My company was Lee Day, now fighting the River-Wye pollution case. During that time, at the request of Greenpeace, I toured French-speaking Quebec province, where I helped Mohawk Indians at their reservation on the US border. I did public speaking venues and media, along with New York chemistry professor Paul Connett. I was invited to the annual dinner of scientists and science journalists at Quebec Seminary. There's more, but back to the other 10 conditions for French company TotalEnergies. Number 11. To conduct a trial of noisy construction equipment and to provide details of workforce parking, site storage and amenities. Number 12. To clearly identify and acknowledge public rights of way and expected alterations. 13. To make an assessment of the short-term and long-term impacts on local businesses. 14. To provide the specification of fencing to be used and its routes, lengths, heights, positioning, and impact on landscape visibility. 15. To produce an assessment of the short-term and long-term reduction in recreational participation, together with associated health and well-being effects. Number 16. To make a forecast of the reduction in property values in Caerleon, Ponthir, Llanfrecfr and Llandegford, as well as assessment of the wider appeal of this popular area, with its attractive countryside, rich history, and important archaeological sites. 17. To publish the projected annual return on investment over time, with a view to reducing the planned 40 years of operation of the solar power plant, coupled with a projection of the risks to future energy markets. 18. To establish a bond to secure risk to development and the cost of ultimate waste management and site rectification. 19. To provide details of the suggested new road across the fields from Llanfrecfr. Number 20. To establish a public complaints procedure. Just a little before I finish, I wanted to include some campaigning history in case the company or anyone else with a financial interest tries to discredit me, or the motives of the campaign. That kind of thing has happened before. I've lived in the big brick house overlooking the brook for 47 years. I know I'm past my sell-by date for campaigning, but it's a delight to feel close to a local campaign again. Anyway, my 4-year High Court battle didn't quite end on the steps of the High Court. No, because I felt the reason I was sued, along with responsible journalists, was that the defamation law was ancient, aristocratic, and was being used by wealthy people and organisations to silence others. I once travelled from an environmental conference with a fledgling lawyer, Martin Day. He later helped found Lee Day, now a major legal firm specialising in environmental cases. The next thing for me was to become active with a small group of authors, science writers and scientists. We were helped by some eminent politicians, including an ex-Attorney General, to change the law of libel. It took a long time. Even though I didn't quite retire then, I saw a new need in the crazily conceived, badly designed solar power threat that has arrived on my doorstep. The destructive plan reminds me that we live in a region where countryside and communities have been sacrificed before. I don't want to see our beautiful land become another victim of mindless ideology and greed in a region which has already seen too many victims.